think that there's unfair expectations that are placed on men and women as well. I think that women have been systematically oppressed since the beginning of time. If you want to argue with me on that, go ahead.
I could argue on that. I could argue with you on that.
Why would you argue with me on that?
Because the whole thing with feminism is it's trying to look at the issues that women have. And I think for the longest period of time, men didn't really take a thorough analysis of the ways in which they were disadvantaged. But feminism has sort of opened the floodgates, because when you start looking at, okay, well, here's the way that us women have it worse, and men are to blame, by the way, and it's men's fault, then men are going to start to want to assert potential counterclaims to your positions. And then men are going to start to look and say, well, if we're going to start to look at everything through this prism, this lens of gender, then we're going to also look, because feminism's playing a comparison game. It's saying women have it worse than men. So if you put that out there into the ether, into the universe, it then opens up men to say, well, hold on, let's actually do an analysis on the ways in which we don't have it so great. So for example, I mean, you often hear things about the wage gap, reproductive rights, although that doesn't really occur to me to be a gender thing, because men have absolutely zero reproductive rights. Women have far more reproductive rights compared to men. But you start looking at these things, and then men can start looking at, okay, well, what are the sort of gendered negative life outcomes for men? And we look at things like...
Grid One Motorsports donated $200. Feminists have been supporting the fact that men are better women than actual women are. How can you support this? Women are being oppressed by women who hate men and want the world to burn. Be better.
So just to finish my point here. So thank you, good one. Appreciate it. So if men start to actually make an analysis of the negative life outcomes that they have, you can look at, for example, men are more likely to delete themselves. They're less likely to get higher education. They're less likely to go to college. You go to UCSB, right? What's the gender breakdown there? I think it's probably 60-40. Now, back in the day, it was evidence of sexism that there were more men going to university than women. Now that's completely flip-flopped. There's more women going to universities than men. Are you prepared to argue that that's evidence of sexism towards men? I would suspect not, because anytime women become overrepresented in some area, that is still equality in the eyes of women. It's never inequality if it's 80% of women are in this desirable work field. That's never viewed as for sexist reasons towards men. There's some other examples here. They're more likely to die in war. They're forced into war. They're more likely to die on the job. They're more likely to be incarcerated. They're more likely to be victims of police misconduct and police killings. They're more likely to be homeless. There's a whole bunch of other scenarios. And in fact, immediately upon birth, if we look at within the first 24 hours of birth, men are immediately have their genitals mutilated. That's an instant.
Are you talking about circumcision?
Yeah, I mean, you laugh at it, but it actually is a barbaric practice.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
You're right. I haven't viewed it that way before, but sure.
Yeah, most women are the ones who are opting to have their male sons have their genitals mutilated. But there's all kinds of ways.
Maybe we'll call that the mother's stitch, maybe.
Almost all men in the United States have a circumcision, and the reasons are dubious at best. I'm not in favor of it, but we don't have to get into a circumcision conversation. So I mean,
didn't that initiate, like, a lot of the things you mentioned are kind of initiated by men though, right?
I mean, not the circumcision thing, but
so women were the ones that first started circumcision?
It's from the Bible.
Well, actually, you know what's funny? When it comes to female genital mutilation in some of these other countries, it's not something that's in the U.S., but it's actually women that tend to uphold that specific tradition against other women. So as you're about to make a "but it's men's fault" argument. So are they less victims because the perpetrator of the cause of this is because they're men?
No, I wasn't about to say that. I feel like it's like the opposite. Like women will, like, remember how I mentioned that earlier, that women uphold the patriarchy. Like that kind of goes with my point. Like if a woman is mutilating another woman's genitalia, it's because of like patriarchy at the end of the day.
It's okay. Anyways, so to kind of put the final point in what I was saying here, I'm actually prepared to just disregard actually most of my points that I made and focus in on just one. So you said from the beginning of time, women have been oppressed and men haven't.
Oh, I knew you were going to bring up this one. Okay, that was a really big blanket statement that you could probably poke holes in all you wanted. I think that, sure, maybe that was a bit of like an absolute. I think that the issues that women face in society, and you're right, this whole idea of feminism exists in this comparative to men who has it worse. And I think that there is a lot of issues with the modern take of feminism. I think that it hasn't gone too far. I would never say that. But I think that we've lost sight of really what the goal was supposed to be, and that it should be a basis of equity and not equality. And really, what are the rules, what are the things that are facing men? What are the issues that are facing women? And how can we support both? It's not a matter of putting down men to bring up women or saying that all men suck and trying to vilify one gender or the other.
Well, let's just go back to the bear thing. You guys all would rather be in a forest alone with a bear than with a man. Not all of you, but most of you answered that way. Isn't that sort of vilifying men to say that any given random man is more dangerous than a bear?
I think after our hour-and-a-half conversation, I reconsidered the way that I was looking at the scenario, and I wouldn't necessarily use the same logic that Andrew was talking about now. I think maybe I would reconsider my answer.
Okay.